surreal. The only way to describe it is a movie scene.
Witnesses talk about what happened as firefighters risked their lives to stop flames inside a townhome. What new cell phone video shows as the building collapses around them, coming up.
And under fire, disturbing post made on Facebook causing concern this morning, but not only for what was said, but for who may have posted them.
Also, conflict of interest. Who the city council says got a contract to train are proposing to get a contract to train police APD officers that isn't sitting well with some city councilors today. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to KRQE News 13 this morning. I'm Adam Atchison.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Krista Gutierrez. Today is Tuesday, March 15th. We'll get to those stories in just a bit. But first, we're still talking about the winds today.
We sure are. Kristen Curry is watching those temperatures and where they're heading as well today. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. It's the Ides of March, right? Yeah, I think. March, that's right. What's that from? That's from Julius Caesar?
Julius Caesar.
Julius.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to say Hamlet, but I'm not right.
Close. All right, yes. Well, when it comes to today, unfortunately, those winds are back, and they're going to be brutal for some of us. I wanted to start, though, with those morning currents because the winds are better, not perfect, though. 48 degrees as you're walking out the door. Go ahead and pick out your neighborhood number. More than likely, you're in the 40s and 50s. We have some 30s up there in the higher terrain as well as southern Colorado. So jacket definitely needed this morning. But there's those wind speeds as of right now. Still very windy out in Las Vegas with sustained speeds over 30 miles per hour. Ruidoso also looking at windy conditions to start the day. But for the rest of us, it's a light to moderate wind. Those winds will get worse later on today. And to pair with that, we're cooler. We're only looking at those low to mid 60s today, not those 70s we had yesterday afternoon. So a couple of twists in today's forecast that we need to talk about. I'll break down everything you need to know for your neighborhood coming up here in about 10 minutes.
And we start with some breaking overnight news. APD is investigating a shooting at a southeast Albuquerque park. Officers say the investigation is still in its early stages, and they're trying to figure out exactly what happened and if anyone was actually shot. We do know police were called to the park near Grove and Southern around 3:30 this morning. Our crews did see CSI out on scene, and it did appear as if they were focusing on a Nissan Altima in the area. No word on how it could be involved. We will stay on top of the story, bringing the very latest as new information comes into our newsroom.
On to this in just a few weeks, the Albuquerque City Council could take up a plan, an APD plan, to give officers more training when it comes to crisis intervention again. Last night, city councilors raised some questions about a conflict of interest with the proposed APD training contract. APD applied for and received a federal grant to work with a nonprofit for crisis intervention training. The problem, Albuquerque City Councilor Pat Davis pointed out, is who created that nonprofit? Two APD officers and APD psychologist. Giving the training contract to the APD nonprofit without putting the job up for bid, Davis says creates a conflict.
If the police department believes that this project is that important, we need them to go back to the table, talk with the Department of Justice about who else can do that coordinating role, because we can't have city employees paid by city taxpayers running a program that supervises themselves.
Councilors deferred that issue for 30 days. They're going to take up the contract again during their April finance meeting.
To this morning, Rio Rancho is investigating whether or not some disturbing posts on social media were created by one of its officers. One post reads in part, "Every 9/11 should be a day of remembrance. We should celebrate this day by a 24-hour air raid of carpet bombings of the entire Middle East," end quote. A tipster says that man who posted it is a police officer. The man's Facebook page does not have a profile picture or directly say that he is a Rio Rancho cop. We showed the post to the American Civil Liberties Union of New Mexico. This is what they had to say.
Well, it's incredibly offensive, of course, and deeply racist and disturbing that a police officer would say something like that.
The deputy chief of Rio Rancho Police confirmed there is a Rio Rancho police officer with this man's name. He said the city is looking into whether it is actually his page.
Happening in just about an hour, crews are scheduled to begin a major water pipeline repair. The Water Utility Authority says it'll be out replacing a valve serving the Four Hills area starting at 6 this morning. They're asking residents in that neighborhood to curb their outdoor water usage starting today through Thursday. Crews are replacing a pipeline valve for the next 2 days.
Happening this morning, a woman in critical condition at last check following a downtown shooting. It happened around 7 last night on 2nd Street near Haynes. Police do have someone in custody this morning. No word on a motive just yet, but we will continue following the story throughout the morning.
A pet store owner is asking questions how 2 of her stolen hedgehogs wound up at a rival store. Terry Halbergs owns Petland. She says the manager of another store contacted her asking if they could buy the 2 hedgehogs. She said no, but the next day Halberg says 2 women captured on surveillance video were in her store and stole the hedgehogs. That's when a Petland customer decided to head into another pet store and asked if they had hedgehogs. They told her one had just sold, they had 1 left, but this one had a mark on its nose, she says, just like the one from Petland.
And she was aware that it had the sore on the nose, so she instantly knew, and they allowed her to take pictures.
Halberg rushed to the store and took the hedgehog. We spoke with the manager. He says he bought them from a customer. When we asked him if he bought them from these women, he said no.
On to this, a lot of people still talking about this story. This morning it remains unclear where the son of UNM's head basketball coach will play next year. We do know, though, he will not be with the Lobos. Colin Neal announced he's leaving the team yesterday, just days after a disappointing end to the season. He's graduating with a communications degree with 2 years of eligibility left as a player. He can now immediately play at his new school as a grad student. This season, has been especially rough for Colin, with his up and down play dividing fans and the team. His dad said Colin had to deal with death threats. A few days ago, sports director Van Tate asked the coach whether his son would transfer. This is what he said.
You anticipate Colin to come back?
I anticipate him. Yeah, we haven't even talked about it. So.
No word yet on where he could transfer to. Well, Colin Neal will not be here next year. Craig Neal will. His contract runs through 2020.
Developing now, the NFL is acknowledging a link between football and traumatic brain injuries. That includes CTE, a degenerative brain disease. A senior league official made the admission yesterday during a congressional discussion on concussions. CTE does affect some athletes, usually those who play contact sports.
This morning, several firefighters are thankful to be alive after a risky rescue nearly turned deadly. Take a look at this. The townhome they were in collapsed. They were still inside. Authorities say the fire started in the basement of this townhouse yesterday. When firefighters got there, the blaze escalated to a 3-alarm fire. There were concerns one person may still be inside as crews fought the flames and rushed into the collapse happened, trapping 8 firefighters. That triggered a mayday. Those 8 did suffer some injuries, one seriously hurt this morning. The person they thought was in there was not. They found them. All are expected to recover this morning.
And these really are the kind of dangers firefighters face
yeah.
every day, right? Putting themselves on the line.
In the blink of an eye, 2 officers rushed to the rescue of a toddler on the side of a highway, saving the baby who did not have a second to spare.
Then upping the ante, how state police plans to grow the force and when recruits will be able to sign up.
Also this.
I felt trapped, like I was between a rock and a hard place.
Coming forward, the woman who police say harbored an escaped convict speaks out. What she says happened during the time Lionel Claw was at her apartment. Plus, who else is feeling the heat this morning? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to KRQE News 13 this morning. I'm Krista Gutierrez.
Good to have you along. I'm Adam Atchison. We're going to get to the top stories here in just a second. We're talking about the weather, though, to start.
We sure are. Kristen Curry, what are we seeing today?
More wind, unfortunately, and they're getting better. They're just not perfect yet. I wanted to start with those current wind speeds as we backed down since yesterday afternoon, but we're still looking at some pretty windy conditions up in Las Vegas with sustained speeds over 30 miles per hour. Breezy up in Santa Fe, Farmington, Durango, and down to the south in Alamogordo and Ruidoso with winds about 10 to 20 miles per hour. Albuquerque, we're barely noticing the winds now. Those will pick up as we get into the later part of today. Doppler radar showing a few showers to the north of Raton. We'll watch to see if we can get any of those showers across the state line, but the rest of us quiet at this moment. Hourly forecast for the Santa Fe area. You guys are looking at those upper 50s to low 60s, slightly cooler than yesterday, but a good amount of sunshine overhead. There we go. Red flag warnings already up for some parts of the state. That's because those gusty winds and low humidity coming back this afternoon. So I'll break down today's winds. We'll also take a look at the cooler temperatures that we have on tap across the state today. All that here in about 15 minutes.
We will pursue with a vengeance to hold them accountable.
2 guards on leave this morning, and authorities say they're expecting to make arrests in the case of 2 escaped prisoners. This newly released video shows inmates Joseph Cruz and Lionel Claw boarding the transport van at the state penitentiary in Santa Fe on Wednesday. The van stopped for gas in Artesia around 8:30 that night and arrived in Las Cruces around 1 a.m. That's when guards noticed the 2 are gone. The inmates say they picked the locks of their shackles and bolted from the van. Somehow they made it to Albuquerque and got new clothing. This morning, state prisons are on lockdown. The inmates are not being transported anywhere unless it's an emergency, as authorities investigate what led to the escape.
Meantime, an Albuquerque woman who turned in one of the escapees is speaking out about what led to his arrest. News 13's Sarah Yingling has more on why she says this all could have turned out much worse. Sarah?
Adam, Michelle Abeta is under investigation after Lionel Claw stayed at her Northeast Heights apartment for 2.5 days. She eventually turned him in. Abeta says she met Joseph Cruz and Lionel Claw through a neighbor. The 2 ended up separating, and that's how Claw ended up at her apartment, eventually opening up to her.
Way later that night, he confessed.
How did he confess?
I got him to drink a little and just to relax because I was nervous too, having a guy in my house that I didn't know. And he opened up and we had a good conversation.
Abeta says she showed Claw her the video that landed him in jail in the first place, the violent shootout in San Juan County back in 2007, and it freaked her out. She says he told her that he would do it all over again, and she turned him in so nobody would get hurt.
I felt trapped, like I was between a rock and a hard place because of the decision that I had to make.
Claw eventually surrendered Saturday. Abeta brought up that $10,000 reward money offered by the U.S. Marshals, but it's unclear if she's entitled to it or not. Back to you.
Thank you, Sarah. Investigators say they do want to look at all of Abeta's statements to determine if she will be charged in this case. To stay up to date on this developing story, download the KRQE News app.
This morning, investigators are on the search for these people right here. They're in connection with a stolen pickup truck that was used in a crime spree and possibly a murder. Earlier this month, Sandoval County deputies found a 2015 Ford F-150 near the Diamond Till Ranch that's just east of the Hollywood Casino. The interior was covered in blood. Deputies say they have evidence it was used in a crime spree. Surveillance pics from a store where the truck was stolen in Albuquerque show the people investigators want to speak to. To see the pictures again, head on over to our KRQE News app. Happening today, voters in 5 states, including Florida and Ohio, head to the polls just in hours, all to decide who should be their party's presidential nominee. Let's take a look at what's happening in Ohio this morning. Hundreds of thousands are ready to cast their ballots. The crucial Florida primary, Republican Donald Trump is expected to beat Marco Rubio in this. A win there for Trump could spell the end of Rubio's campaign. In Ohio, Trump remains locked in a fierce battle with John Kasich today. Kasich has signaled he would drop out if he lost his home state. Democrat Hillary Clinton faces a challenge from Bernie Sanders in the Midwest states of Ohio, Missouri, and Illinois.
In our state this morning, state police are preparing to hold recruiting events to help beef up the force over the next 2 weeks. The department typically requires everyone to go through the full 22-week academy, but to add more officers to the force, the department has decided to hire lateral police officers too. That means anybody with at least 3 years of experience will only have to complete a 7-week academy with a 9-week field training period after that. For more information on the recruiting events, just open the KRQE News app this morning.
On to news happening tonight. Bernalillo County commissioners are expected to discuss a plan that could bring more jobs to the metro. General Mills wants to expand its Albuquerque plant and add more jobs. The company is asking the county for $80 million in industrial revenue bonds. It's basically a tax-free loan to fund the expansion. The food giant says the money will be used to complete the expansion currently underway and to buy equipment. They say the project will add 30 new jobs.
On to this, a baby girl back to a full recovery today thanks to the quick thinking of 2 Illinois officers. The incident was caught on dash cam, and police say officers arrived on the scene on the side of a highway to find an 18-month-old baby not breathing and without a pulse. The officers who did there arrived quickly, performed the Heimlich maneuver, and then gave the child CPR just as an ambulance arrived. They rushed her to the hospital where she made a full recovery. Authorities say the girl had choked on some liquid. They say had it not been for the officers' quick actions, that girl could have died.
Wow.
So they were just in the nick of time.